Bob Marley once said, "The greatness of a man is not in how much wealth he acquires, but in his integrity and his ability to affect those around him positively." This is the Producers Lounge podcast, the best podcast online for tips and tricks on producing great film, television, and web content. Welcome back for Season 2, Episode 12, hosted and produced by GreaterandGrander.com. On this week's episode, we're chatting with John Heinsen, who has produced new media, documentaries, and television, including the annual Academy Awards starring Billy Crystal, Ellen DeGeneres, and Seth MacFarlane, as well as numerous transmedia and digital media campaigns for 20th Century Fox, Disney, and major international brands around the world. He's also served as Vice President of New Media for the Producers Guild of America and co-chair of the Guild's VR Task Force, as well as oversees digital strategy for the PGA Awards. I'll be honest, John Heinsen is a name you may not know, but he's immensely respected within the Producers Guild of America and the producing community. Everybody I know and have talked to about John has said great things about him, and the reasons why and his insight into the changing media landscape is evident in this episode. We discuss working to produce the Oscars, the 3 C's of promoting your work online: content, conversation, and community, and the future of entertainment and new media. Here now is my conversation with John Heinsen.
Cancer America, which is Roger Daltrey and Pete Townsend's foundation that teen centers inside pediatric cancer wards.
Mm-hmm.
And I am part of a group that is developing a cross-country fundraising event for them called St. Fantasy. And the charity, which has been around for 25 years in England, actually, their main fundraising effort is a week-long event at Royal Albert Hall. So it's been around for 25 years, and the Queen would go. It's a big deal. And so for about 5-6 years, the charity's been on the ground here in America, and I'm part of the creative team that is looking to build something here that would travel. So it's very exciting, amazing, crazy, creative people that worked with Elvis and Paul McCartney and all the rest. So it's really fun, really great piece, and something to be working on during the pandemic.
It sounds like it. It sounds like an amazing opportunity, and like that's that just sounds incredible. And I was looking at your bio earlier. You've really worked on a lot of really incredible stuff, whether it's these fundraisers or the Oscars or spearheading like new media campaigns. Like, you've really been at the forefront of all that.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's I always say the job I'm going to have in 3 years doesn't exist yet, and I've been saying that for 15 years. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, I was a very traditional guy. I was an undergrad. When I was an undergrad, I was a news producer for NBC in Tucson, Arizona. Then I came out to LA, went to AFI, wanted to be a sitcom writer, and couldn't get a writing assistant job, so I went to go work. I got offered a job with the head of comedy at Sony, who before I could start the job was fired, and went to ICM right after the Endeavor split. So I ended up doing 1.5 years of TV packaging, which was actually a very valuable experience to me. And then I went to work for the head of comedy at Fox, Lance Taylor at the network, and worked my way up in 3 years to being a junior executive. So at the age of 30, being a very old man in that world, I was the creative executive on Family Guy and That 70s Show and all sorts of crazy stuff, Cops and America's Most Wanted. And so I had this great experience being at a broadcast network, especially Fox, that was so top heavy with sports, the World Series and all this stuff. So for launching new shows in the fall, it was always difficult because we could never give them the promotion time. And this was at a time when Fox was making all these big deals with Yahoo and the emerging space. And so I knew that the web, especially being an 18 to 49, and in reality, an 18 to 33 network, we were really trying to tap that audience. And I just thought the web was it. So the job that I was jockeying for then in the year 2000 was to really be that current program executive between broadcast and the internet. And in a lot of instances, it's a job that still doesn't exist today and is very well needed. So then what would happen after my time at Fox ended, I was there for 4 years and 3 presidents, which is a great experience. I really decided to go back to producing, and I was really interested in this new emerging space. So I decided, in looking at the landscape at the time, and this is pre-YouTube, I
Mhm.
knew that the freedom that the web provided took away a focus of eyeballs. And it was the monetizing of eyeballs that, where you made money in television. So I
Right.
knew the web wasn't there yet. But I was seeing where the mobile space was taking hold and that I really saw the potential of creating these new business models that could create these new revenue streams. So I
Mm.
was very, very early into mobile video. This is actually what got me into the Producers Guild because they had actually approached me to co-launch their mobile committee and to drive that thought leadership. That's actually what originally got me into the PGA.
Mhm.
And so this is 2005. By 2008, it became made mobile TV kind of went away, and then it
Mhm.
became mobile web because by now the web was really kind of taking hold. And this is when Made for Mobile basically came transmedia. And because
Mhm.
I had come from broadcast TV, it allowed me a position to have a very unique perspective in that world, especially now being in the Producers Guild, and by at that point being on the board of the New Media Council, which I eventually was the chairman of, um, allowed me to do that and do a lot of thought leadership, which then also allowed me to do film festivals around the world and all the different things that I still do today. But in 2011, I was approached to produce the second year of the second screen experience for the Academy Awards for ABC. And so that was a great experience because I was charged with taking this website, this official website, and later mobile app for the Academy, and basically creating all that digital context between the broadcast show. And I was very well equipped to do that because I had been a program executive. So I could liaison very effectively with the senior marketing executives at ABC because them knowing me as a broadcast executive, I understood their pain points.
Mhm.
And this is at a time, my first day on the job was the day they fired Brett Radner and Eddie Murphy from the Oscars. That was my first day on the job.
Oh, wow.
So again, it was very interesting. And of course you have all the Academy crazy, which now 10 years later, we all know firsthand. At the time I was knee deep in the trenches with it. So I did Billy Crystal, Seth MacFarlane, and Ellen DeGeneres.
Oh,
And
wow.
if you remember the Ellen selfie, I was very, involved with that. And obviously that was a very seminal moment. And
Didn't
uh,
that crash Twitter also?
it did. And there's a story that I'd love to tell you, but I'm under NDA. So it did crash
Understood.
Twitter, but not all things are on accident. So let's leave it at that. So,
Got it.
but anyway, but yeah, very interesting stuff. And so, um, coming out of the Oscars after doing it for 3 years, I really thought I was in a position to eventually become like a VP of digital at a studio. And it just really didn't happen. It was really kind of interesting. I think what I was finding from my peers that were in those positions, the studios just were not entrepreneurial enough. They just could not allow it. I was very lucky on the Oscars project because I was given the power within ABC and from the Academy to be the digital synergy lead across the entire Disney vertical.
Mhm.
And so I could pick up the phone and call any VP and say, "Do you want to do this for the Oscars?" And what was very fun for me is that as long as I thought whatever I was pitching through, my goal was to make that little gold statue look better. And if what I pitched made that little gold statue look better, even after 85 years, they always had to say yes.
Mhm.
So because that statue can always be better. And now, of course, we're very challenged with that. So um, but anyway, so then I went back to, really focusing on producing, and I got very interested in the social impact space because I understood and appreciated this value of community. And that really is the value proposition in the digital space, this idea of content, conversation, community. Why did Disney buy ABC? Why did Disney buy Maker Studios for $500 million? Well, what I found from them firsthand is they didn't buy the content, they didn't buy the creators, they bought the community. And just like when Fox bought MySpace, they didn't know what to do with it and it died on the vine. And where's
Mm.
Maker today? And not one piece of IP that was born in Maker became a television show. So again, it's just this idea the studios don't know what they're doing. So, um, so then I was working for several years on a passion project of mine that was it's all about World War I.
Mhm.
Uh, My grandfather was a combat photographer in World War I, and in 2015, I went looking for where some of his photos were taken. And my son and I were in Europe the week after the big terror attack in Paris. And because of that, we had to change our itinerary. And only because of that, we found where the pictures were taken. And the pictures are actually immensely more historically significant than anyone thought.
Wow.
So this has been an ongoing project that I've been working on, which has really gotten me into this community space. And if the name of my project is Return to La Cateau, 1917. And my hashtag for the project is Bring Them Home Again. If you're interested in that space and that history. Basically, I have a photograph of 30 British prisoners from 1917. And my documentary is I'm going to find the families of those 30 men and bring the picture home to them 100 years later, to their descendants.
Wow.
So it's all about, yeah. So
That's incredible. And that's a lot.
yes, sorry. Yeah.
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah, that's so you're very, very active, and you're really the tip of the spear on a lot of the things that you're working on, whether it is digital, whether it is the World War I project. It sounds like you're also doing the same for the sorry, you just mentioned the charity.
Teen Cancer America. Yes.
The
Yes.
answer. Yeah.
Yeah.
So and also like there's a lot of questions I would like to ask you. I'm going to be upfront
Great.
because yeah, but we only have 1 hour.
I know.
So but so let's start with like this question of community and digital.
Mhm.
You know, a lot of creators and filmmakers, they want to get out there with their projects
Right.
and capture a community and get some engagement, but 9 times out of 10 it falls flat. What do you think the film world doesn't get about using digital to build community?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've through some of the festivals I'm involved with in South Korea and Estonia, I have spent a lot of time in the genre space, genre films. And I've been a mentor for the European Genre Forum. And in that space, it's a great example of a very rich community that loves getting every ounce of content they can. And so what a lot of filmmakers are learning, particularly in that space, is um, they go to a distributor and they're going to say, "What's your community like?" And of course, a Facebook page or a GoFundMe account, doesn't cut it. They really want to see that. And so I think the mistake that filmmakers make, and TV shows, all the different people and whatnot, are basically they're thinking of it as an afterthought. That really what a transmedia producer does is that I would work with the line producer and the director to capture as much original content to be used for ancillary platforms in principal photography.
Right.
And even when I first got into mobile, it was about spending production dollars up front and not marketing dollars after the fact. And that is exactly the reason why ABC brought me in to run the Oscars and not just assign some executive to it, because they needed a producer to capture it. They realized that's what they needed. So this is exactly the same in the genre space. So classic example, you've got a teen horror movie, and what is going to happen? The cheerleader's going to die, probably in a shower, right? And maybe you're going to stunt it with somebody that's known in some space or whatnot.
Right.
That's very typical, right? Well, now you see that in the movie. Of course, it's a hot moment in the movie. It might get web coverage after it's out, whatever it is. But now imagine in advance of the movie, imagine if that character had a video blog, and she was creating content that could get out there in advance of your movie, so you're greater invested in the character. So that scene then has more meaning. For a screenwriter, the way that I kind of describe it is when I talk to screenwriting students is when you write a screenplay and you have the index cards, right? And we all do the index cards and we lay them out. And as our story comes together, the index cards get cast away. Now, they might have been something you thought would be great, but they just don't fit the flow of a narrative story. Well, now what transmedia provides an opportunity is to take those pieces, those ancillary pieces, and bring them back to life. It's almost like the cards that become your film are your Christmas tree, and the ancillary stuff become the ornaments. That's really what it is. And then to be cost effective, you work in principal photography. So you have a high production values, symbiotic of the film. in the TV space, what I talk about when I do lectures is take any film, any TV show pre 1985, and imagine that IP as a 2022 release. So imagine the Brady Bunch, right? Or even Cheers as an example. Well, now the bar might have a website. You might have bylines by Sam Malone about what the Red Sox are doing this year. It's all these other things. That's the big thing, or all this ancillary content you can create. That can often be very cheap because you're leveraging these social platforms where people live. It's not, nobody goes to the NBC website anymore, and they barely will go to a Facebook page. But if you can engage them, if I could be Rachel's friend from Friends and she's my Facebook friend, and in an episode of Friends, okay, so now I'm a TV guy, right? So I'm used to doing this with sitcoms. Right. So now imagine you've got Friends, and Rachel meets a guy in the coffee house. It's Mark Wahlberg, right? Now we all know a big movie star is in Friends. She sees him in the coffee shop. Next week, you're going to have the date, right?
Yeah.
So now the promos that are going to be generated by the network during the week are going to regurgitate stuff from the episode and say, here's what you're going to see. Well, now imagine if I am Rachel's Facebook friend and I've seen the first episode, but now on Wednesday, she sends me a user-generated photo from the fitting room at Gap of the dress she's going to wear. Am I going to wear this dress on my date? Now, do you think Gap would pay for that engagement?
Yes.
Yes, they would, right? And now she's going to wear the dress in the date. That is new money. The key to the digital space is the new money. And the problem with Hollywood is they've been shitting bricks about the money they've been losing instead of looking for the new money. They can't let go of the money they're losing. So that's what I think the biggest problem has been for the studios.
That is really insightful, and it actually reminds me of something that I actually suggested to a couple of directors I worked with in the past. I was line producing this film up in Portland, and it was a horror film, and I actually did say, hey, we've got these days where these two cast members aren't working, but we flew them up here.
Yeah.
What if we had them go out and just improvise some videos, and we use that as kind of an Instagram promotion thing? We didn't wind up doing it just because there were a lot of other moving parts, which I can't talk about because I'm under NDA. But yeah, it was something that we didn't take advantage of. And so often I think with independent filmmakers, they don't see the value in it. But on the flip side of that coin, you could put out, a 12-part Instagram thing or YouTube playlist.
Totally.
But then even that then needs to have its own marketing campaign and promotions behind it, because it's very hard for those kind of things to get discovered independently without ad dollars.
Sure. Well, when you think about an indie film, you've got, let's say you've got, things like that, even a big film, what you're going to have are 3 different phases of content. You've got the awareness phase in advance of the film coming out. This could be based on the stars in the film, buzz on the film, whatever it's going to be. Then you have it when it's in theaters or when it's festivaling. What's going on now that people have seen it. And then if you've got something that has any sort of franchise, what's the after content, the conversation around the film? And it could be a big film. It could be a small film. I just was reminded of the Julia Roberts film, Ben is Back. I personally didn't really like the film, but it's all about a woman whose son is drug addicted. He comes home and now he's falling off the wagon, right? So families deal with that. There could be a whole conversation piece around it. I remember when Julia and Julia, the Julia child film came out. Something that Paramount did that ended up blowing up. Nobody expected it was. They created a Facebook page. And what ended up happening was thousands and thousands of people used it as a discussion board for doing Julia Roberts recipes. And it exploded. Hey, did you try this? Did you try this? You try this? It is crazy. And when you build community, obviously we've all been in lockdown. I don't know if you have crazy wives like mine, but all these different people that the Facebook giveaway groups. Have you heard of these? The Buy Nothing groups?
No.
Oh, it's basically kindness. So I've got this laundry basket and I don't need it. And I don't want to throw it out and I don't want to have a garage sale and I don't want to deal with Goodwill. So I'm going to put it in my neighborhood Facebook group. And if anybody needs it, then come pick it up at my front door.
Oh, I have heard it. Okay.
Yes, it's crazy. People are into it's a cult. It's a cult. Scientology. I'm convinced Scientology's behind it. But It's killed Craigslist. You had Nextdoor, which had a very vibrant marketplace, killed that.
Uh-huh.
And it's just by chance that Facebook has been able to do this. It's localized content, and it's just goodwill, and it's just, but it's crazy. And so that's what this is. Pretty interesting stuff.
That is incredible. Wow.
So it's community content, conversation, community is really the key, and then what's interesting about this ancillary content, by the way, and going back a bit, when I was at ICM in 1996, they were very much ahead of their time. My boss was part of the global branding group. And so at the time, and this is when Sex and the City Sopranos were the first shows on cable to spend $1 million an episode, they were representing brands like Gap and Starbucks to basically offset license fees of shows by investing in shows, not buying spots, but investing in shows. So it was about digging within the brand brief, which is something people on TV never really do. That's an advertising thing. But digging within the brand brief and saying, you've got Abercrombie and you've got Hollister. Now, most people could look at those two brands and say they're the same. In fact, they're owned by the same company, but the people that run those two brands would tell you they're very different. So that becomes really interesting, because then if you take the DNA of that brand and put it into the story that you're telling, well, then the branding is seamless, and that's what the brands want anyway. So now if I can take in a show to ABC, I could package a show. This is what ICM is trying to do. And if that 1 hour drama is going to have a $2 million license fee, but I'm bringing $500,000 per episode buy-in sponsor to offset that, my show's going to get picked up. So that was what they were trying to do. And so because of that, now looking at short form digital content, like For Your Friend's movie, this idea of, are there brands that could be inherent to that experience? And can a brand buy into that? Because the cost measure for short form content in the digital space is the cost per minute. This is the other thing people don't realize. That 70s show at 22.5 minutes is $67,000 an episode based on the license fee. Well, the digital space, you're lucky to get $5,000 a minute for content. So if I've got a 4-minute episode show underwritten by Hollister, and they're happy to pay the $4,000 per minute, I can then give it to the consumer for free.
Wow.
That's really what it comes down to.
And what you're proposing sounds a lot like what some companies like Gimlet Media, for example, they do podcasts.
Yep.
I think the majority of their podcasts are sponsored by a particular brand, and they at least claim that they're nonpartisan when talking about the brand, or non-biased. But is there any concerns about that? Are there any concerns about that in terms of biasness? I mean, when it's nonfiction versus fiction, it's a whole other ball of wax,
Yeah. I think it's really just trying to find a similar interest in a brand. I mean, you're seeing with a lot of the really far right stuff is investing in things. You know what I mean? It's kind of crazy.
True. Yeah.
So they're very forthright with it. But I think if Madison Avenue can come to that place, I mean, it's interesting. I'm originally from Chicago, and in 2008, 2007, they were really trying to rebrand themselves as a town for digital content, because what was happening is digital creatives at this emerging space were getting frustrated in the big agencies, Leo Burnett, Draft FCB, all the rest. And so what they were doing is, because they were getting this work, but they were being stifled internally, because digital is always going to be this bastard stepchild to print and on air at the time, right? They would break off and create boutique agencies. That's what was happening. But then with the recession, it killed it all, basically. It was interesting because at the time, I would go and pitch brands mobile content, and a lot of times internally, they just couldn't get it. I'm going to ask you a question. What type of brand would be perfect for short form content like 3 times a day?
Oof.
Captain
To confirm, when you say 3 times a day, you mean 3 posts or 3 videos per day?
3 videos.
Got it. First thing that comes to mind is TikTok. So things that appeal to the TikTok generation, which is
like a consumer brand.
Yeah, like a Gen Z brand, like Hot Topic, maybe, or
at the time it was cigarettes. Marlboro. Marlboro. People outside. So Marlboro, that has a lot of money and lives in a very confined space, you know what I mean, in terms of what they can do. If I opt in because of all the restrictions they have, once they have me, now I can deliver them content 3 times a day.
Right. And that's a question filmmakers or content creators need to ask. Like, are they willing to make that deal to make something, but push something like tobacco products? Yeah.
Here's another one for you. You ever go to the bank?
Occasionally, yeah.
You go to the ATM?
Oh, yeah.
You ever go inside the bank?
Oh, yeah.
But most people don't, right?
Most people don't. Yeah.
Okay. So I have the mobile app for the bank. Yeah. It's secure. I go to the ATM.
Right.
Now imagine if I am at the ATM and I want a piece of entertaining content from the bank. And during my ATM experience, I hit the button and it Bluetooths me securely an episode to my phone to consume at my pleasure.
Interesting. And also gas stations have done something similar with news content.
Yes. At the gases, city buses, there've been all these micro networks. But here's the show is the people work inside the bank and nobody's in there. Nobody goes to the bank anymore. So it's a comedy about the inside of the bank.
Okay, so let me ask you. I'm a content. Yeah, no, I get it. It's brilliant because it's exactly on point. It's locations.
It's a sitcom.
Yeah.
So every time I go to the ATM, I hit the button, they Bluetooth it to my phone.
Okay. So let me ask you, all these content creation and micro network opportunities.
Yep.
What are the minimum level of metrics that someone needs to have in order to get a brand's attention?
Totally. Some of these shifts in thinking are exactly what's held the industry back. It is this idea of, are you building brands through the creation of content or the sponsorship of content? And so what happens is that show is $4,000 a minute, right? Well, if they've got that money, I'm giving it to the consumer for free. It's a reimagining of a content spend. Because I would sponsor a show because they have the great storytelling, but now I don't need the broadcaster anymore because I have the platform to give it to them.
Right.
You know, this is the big problem they've been having is that they don't see it that way. You know what I mean? I remember, imagine this. I would have sponsorships on, let's say I could say the Oscars, but let's say any big event, the Super Bowl. Okay. And let's say I'm going to have a car sponsor or a soda sponsor. And that soda sponsor is going to put $500,000 into my sponsorship of my website. Okay. Now, as part of that, the content I'm creating in conjunction with them and the promotion for the event that they're sponsoring, I am going to work with their social media team to promote. I'm going to give them content to push out on their social platforms. Okay. Now, let's say Coke has 30 million Facebook followers. And let's say Pepsi only has 5.
Right.
Does Coke pay less because they have a greater reach for the sponsorship?
No, I'm guessing not.
That changes the world. No, it doesn't. But eventually, the reach of the brands themselves is going to dictate the spend on content if they can do it in a way that they can fully push the reach. You know?
When you say fully push the reach, what does that actually mean, though?
I had opportunities to collaborate with Samsung, and I never was given access to them.
Oh,
things like that. Because a lot of times within a big organization, the brand relationship, which is driven by sales, they control access to those brands, and they don't allow creative marketing people very often to collaborate with them.
Oh, okay. I see the problem here.
And then sometimes you have brands. I mean, I remember early in the mobile space, CBS was really big. They were bringing in big executives from Europe and all these other things. And I was at the time, really looking to find ways to produce creative content, mobile ancillary content to shows. So I was reading all the CBS pilots, the drama pilots and this and this. So I get a hold of a CBS drama pilot, cop show. I saw some really interesting opportunities for original mobile content. So CBS is in the mobile business. So I thought this would be great because it's promoting their show. I called the VP at the studio, at the network, who I know, said, I read this pilot. have you talked to so-and-so, the mobile guy? Because I see some opportunity. Maybe I can produce it for you, right? Or I'd love to pitch it or whatever. I'd love to meet a showrunner, whatever. He goes, no, nobody's talked to me yet. So then I call up the mobile guy who's making like over $500,000 a year. And I said, hey, this drama pilot, I see some real opportunity. And he was like, well, I got the scripts. I haven't really read them yet. I think I met him at a lunch. Like, he isn't even doing his job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This was right after the upfronts. And they could have gone in there and really, it was just way too ahead of its time. The thinking was just way too ahead of its time.
Right.
That's all. So a lot of the problems keep recycling. There's a whole book that could be written about Quibi and why Quibi was born to fail. Before that, they had Amped Mobile, which went down in as one of the greatest venture capital failures in history. $350 million in funding, and they shut the phones off after 17 months. And when they shut off the phones, they had $50,000 left in the bank. All documented. It's crazy.
So with all that being said, with everything that has, risen and fallen, Quibi, Amp Mobile, all that stuff. So what are you working on now?
Yeah, no, thank you. So several years ago, I was a part of a startup accelerator in Estonia. Estonia, which is up in the Baltic, is actually like the Silicon Valley of Europe. Skype was actually invented there. When the country became independent in 91, they embraced tech and the euro. They're part of NATO. They're very cutting edge thinking community and a very green community. And so they had this startup accelerator that was marrying storytelling, technology, and investment. And so I was one of the founding mentors of it. And one of the groups in the first cohort that we were working with was a group out of Croatia called the Amulet Studio. And the woman that was the head of it, Tihana Smartin, she was the entrepreneur of the year in Croatia in 2019. And she's an amazing young lady, very business centric, but also very creative. And so she has this Amulet Studio in Croatia that does a whole wide range of advertising, brand, logo development, all these things. And she was interested in creating series with social impact. And so after she finished the accelerator, she had asked me to come on board as an advisor. Since then, because of her success with that, she's been a major member of incubators in Silicon Valley. She was a US State Department fellow. She's had all these amazing opportunities. And coming out of that, she had decided to create the Manabu Foundation in the United States. And that happened last year. The word Manabu means to learn in Japanese, which is really interesting. Mm-hmm. And so what the foundation looks to do is to teach future leaders empowerment by teaching them about the UN Sustainable Goals. Is that so you can never start young enough to teach the kids about saving the earth, and a lot of the research has kind of shown it that way. The model that we're following is actually very similar to what Sesame Street first had. So because what happened was Henson worked with Sesame Street children's television, and then when the Muppets began, they really had to separate the for-profit and nonprofit. And so the Manabu Foundation is operating that same way. So when the foundation was created, all the intellectual property originally created by Amulet went into the foundation, which owns it, and now will license it to Amulet to produce content. And so we have these three characters, Ma, Na, and Boo. Hopefully you'll be able to put the link in there. And so we have been developing this series. We just are in the process of making a deal with a distributor and producing partner in Australia, Odin's Eye Entertainment. So we're very excited that we think this project will really go forward. We have these three characters that are very, they're gender agnostic, and they travel around the world, and they basically find these different problems, whether it's plastic in the oceans or endangered animals, and then they work with kids to try to solve it. And so it's really tapping into this young demographic that really hasn't been touched in such a way before. And so we're very excited about it. What's unique about the foundation is that in addition to what we hope eventually be a show, we're creating these activation campaigns that children will be able to participate in outside of the show. And those will be driven by the foundation. So I've been working with them to develop these. And our first one, we are hoping to launch next month. in the town of Šibenik, Croatia, at their children's festival, which is in their 62nd year. And it's basically a nature hike around mental health.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Mhm,
Because I've seen a lot of, I also have a passion myself for children's entertainment.
mhm.
And I've looked at a lot of studies about what can improve mental health in children, and hiking and connection to nature is
Yeah.
certainly one of them.
So that is what we're doing. Yes. And interestingly, Creative Europe, in fact, I was in Croatia in September speaking at a Creative Europe conference talking about this subject. And, it's really interesting. When you look back to our youth, I'm 50, you're probably a lot less than 50, but, a film that I was a little kid and went and saw was E.T. Well, E.T. is not about empathy for aliens. It's about empathy for people that are different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Spielberg was looking at something, that deeper than that. And I think that empathy that young people got at that time, our generation and subsequent generations, is why you're seeing young people embrace all this change. If you think about the LGBTQ community, as an example, my kids have tons of friends that are in that space, and it's no big deal at all. Whereas when I was a kid, that would have been scandalous in high school. You know what I mean? Because these kids see them as peers and they accept them for who they are, which is great. And so what we're trying to do is really be able to touch the emotional chords of children while entertaining them about these different things in the world so that they, when in a position to, could make change.
And I'm curious, what have you learned from your career in mobile and digital and new media that you've brought into this new series?
Again, it's really about this idea of community. Community is the value proposition in the digital space. And so if we could build this community, this is really what it's about. I mean, you think about, you know, the studios will tell you that kids' favorite superhero is Iron Man, but I would tell you it's Greta Thunberg. You know what I mean? Those are the superheroes of the future. And so it's this idea of, just starting this little thing can make it explode. If you remember this is now several years ago, but Kane's Arcade, the little boy that had the cartoon arcade in East LA. It be
Oh yeah, wasn't it made out of cardboard and
Yes,
all that?
the filmmaker made a little doc about it, and it got this national attention. And this little boy from East LA ended up presenting at Cannes Lions, and it was crazy because you could tap into this real human thing. And of course, the big thing about what COVID has done for people is this: it has brought us all to this moment together, this understanding and unified place of um, that we have to appreciate what we have, and we know that odds are we're going to have to live the rest of our lives with less, right? And that life can change on a dime. And so everybody has touched this, whether you've lost somebody to this pandemic or not. So this now is so interesting because, my grandparents lived through the Depression. And so it's that same kind of thing, when I was a little boy, I didn't know what Tupperware was, so I went to college. If there was food on the table, we ate it. You know what I mean? My grandparents. So anyway, it's one of these things where um, being able to connect with community, connect people is really what becomes powerful. And several of these campaigns that we're developing are speaking to that. So this idea, this mental hike for children's nature hike for mental health, is designed to be a global initiative, and then connecting all of these children together once it's done. And we're doing this pilot at this children's festival. We're hoping that we can then turn it into a global effort for International Mental Health Day on October 10th. That is the goal. And if not, we may end up having to do it Earth Day 2023. I don't know. But it's the kind of event where children, and I don't know if you've seen this, it was actually a trend before COVID, this idea of virtual marathons.
Oh no.
It was actually quite established before. So instead of going to the Rose Bowl and, doing your thing for autism or whatever it's going to be, this now you sign up digitally, you do whatever the run is, you record your time, and then they'll send you your medal afterwards. And it's like a whatever, a honor system or whatever you want to call it. So for marathons, so that's what this would be for kids. Kids would register, and then what would happen is their parents would take a picture of them with their Malibu t-shirt, and they would use a hashtag, and then we'd curate that, and then we would send that out to the world on Earth Day, saying that, get out in nature, and what's fun about this activity is that it's designed to be a family activity that is driven by the child. The young child is the head of the event. It is their
Giving
event.
them agency.
Yes, they are the lead on the event. They're not tagged along. So that's kind of what it is. So we've got a whole slew of these campaigns, and currently the foundation, we've been applying for several grants all across Europe. Creative Europe has tripled their money for children initiatives in 2023. So we're very excited to be a part of that. And we've had a lot of exposure, very senior levels of different governments and all across Creative Europe. And we're looking to bring a lot of it here to the States, and we're looking for collaborators.
Great. What is Creative Europe, real quick?
That is the creative arm of the EU.
Got it. And
so it's like it's like the NEA for the EU.
Got it. So then in terms of looking for collaborators in the US, what kind of collaborators or projects are you looking for?
Well, so I mean, different organizations. So for instance, what's exciting about what we're doing is that we really want to focus on this young demographic. And let's say you have a big nonprofit like Greenpeace. Well, Greenpeace is so busy on talking to adults, they don't think about talking to young kids, right? So the idea would be we would partner with them to translate their messaging to that young audience through our characters. And that's what we want to become experts in, that we can collaborate with anybody. And that's what we're looking to do, to pilot these different things and to have these success stories, because we think it is immensely scalable. Also brands. So when you're seeing a lot, most big brands have foundations that are doing all sorts of charitable stuff. And, it's really just about tapping that right person. You know what I mean? You wouldn't know it, but for instance, General Electric and NBC was a huge supporter of autism. Well, why were they a supporter of autism and Autism Speaks and stuff? Because Jack Welch, the head, had an autistic grandchild. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where you're in this space, you find different people that are passionate about things. Maybe there's celebrities passionate about certain areas. They know and understand they can reach that young demographic, and these beautiful characters that we have. And I encourage people to go to manabu.com to check it out, and they would see these characters and really get a sense of what we're trying to do.
Got it. So really you're trying to build the franchise with big level collaborators, whether it's brands, foundations, charities, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask, you obviously have a ton of experience and knowledge in this space. How do you determine what are the projects you want to sign onto, particularly in the development phase?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, what's kind of happened with me was after the Oscars, my company Bunnygraph, which has been around since 2008, I got very frustrated, and a lot of people in the space got frustrated because I was having more clients than projects. I would be coming in trying to bring digital relevance to different libraries and things like that, but I really wasn't getting the projects I wanted. Now, what had happened with my World War I project was my passion project. That really rekindled the love of history that I have. And actually hoping in this next year to launch a new production company that will be called Parallax Viewfinder. And if you know what a parallax viewfinder is, it's about seeing things in kind of this different way. And so what I'm looking to do is, and I have a whole slate of these forgotten stories from history that have important and meaningful lessons for today's world. Mm-hmm. And so that is what I'm looking to do. And some of them are big, some of them are small, some of them are docs, some of them are scripted. And so I have a whole cadre of these projects. And so that's kind of what's happening there. And then obviously my work with the Manabu Foundation, I'm sure is going to continue. So those are the two things I'm really looking for and looking about. Interestingly, just going back to my World War I project, I was invited by the University of Arizona to speak to their College of Humanities about the project. And this idea about redefining remembrance through a human connection, right? Because wouldn't it be great to honor the sacrifice of these men, to see their grandchildren meet in peace 100 years later? That's great, right? That is really something, because you're keeping these men alive by telling their story. See what I mean? And you're honoring them, but you're also honoring what they fought for. And that's what we need, right? We need it today in Ukraine. We need it all over. So the Middle East. And so I did this talk to these humanities students. And the day after, the dean called me and said, we have a group of students that want to meet you to talk more about your project. And I said, sure, I'd be happy to meet with them. And I go to meet with them. And what were they? They were all African exchange students, because they said, your message is something we know we need back home. And how can we help you how can we find a way to bring your message to Africa? Has nothing to do about World War I, has nothing to do about prisoners of war. It's about redefining remembrance, because at a certain point I was kind of stalled with the project. What am I going to do? I had found where a lot of these historical pictures my grandfather had taken occurred, but I really didn't know the story I wanted to tell. And Mitchell Block, who's was a professor at USC, is an Oscar winner for documentary. He said, "Don't do documentaries about dead people, doing about living people." And so what I did is I had actually met the descendant of a World War One soldier who was in the same battle as my grandfather, same battle.
Mhm.
And we connected, and it was this powerful thing. We're like family now. And this has happened throughout history. But so this idea of and then somebody had said to me, you should read about Mandela, because Mandela was this whole idea of forgiveness as the path to peace. Because here, peace is this big, how can we have peace in Ukraine? All these big words. And the idea is, if you can embrace forgiveness, whether you're granting it or you're receiving it, that is the pathway to peace. And forgiveness is the root of every religion on earth. So why not? So in addition to this documentary and museum exhibit that I've been developing, there's all this ancillary content for children. So when they come and they study World War I history, this is the big takeaway. So
Wow. That's, I mean, I'm blown away. That's just incredible that you're working on that. I got two more big questions for you.
great.
I'm
Love it.
curious.
Thank you.
What do you think is on the horizon in the future for content creators? Like, if someone wants to
Sure.
position themselves,
Mhm.
where do they start looking and investing their resources and time?
Well, you've got to make sure you're telling good stories, right? You've really got to focus on that. So many things were thrown together because of the deal behind the deal, but it's really about telling good stories. You look at the NBC show, This Is Us, an amazing show. It's about great stories and great characters. That is always going to deliver no matter what platform it's on. Look at Cobra Kai. Cobra Kai, is YouTube Red. And the biggest complaint they had about it was that it was on YouTube Red. They had to pay for it. And now it's on Netflix. Well, the reason why you got Cobra Kai is because YouTube hired a bunch of TV executives, people that knew how to tell a story. I produced one of the first series for Facebook Watch. And I was shocked at how they didn't have any TV executives. So they didn't serve their community well at all, which is why Facebook Watch has been very flat. Met with Quibi executives. I didn't find them to be very knowledgeable about the space, and so this is basic stuff. And so you got to, because transmedia is your central intellectual property, your characters and the world they live in. And then the challenges for content creators is to identify where your audience lives in the digital space, and then tell independent stories that fit that platform, not just repurposing stuff. If you're just repurposing content, that's multi-platform. If you're telling independent stories, it's transmedia. If you're telling stories at the same time, it's cross-platform. It's all this vernacular that gets everybody jacked up. What I always used to like to see early in the transmedia space, people said, I hate that word. Meeting's over. It's bullshit word. But what I say to students is, transmedia represents an opportunity for storytellers to have a freedom to engage audiences wherever they live in the digital space. So because this new platform, this new type of storytelling is based in freedom, people should be free to call it whatever the fuck they want. And so I call transmedia storytelling through advanced content. That's what I call it. That is based on my experience as a TV guy that has now spent 15 years in the digital space.
Stack for sure.
Advanced content. Yes. So you want to be able to collaborate with people. You want to be able to look at things. You want to see who your audience is. Like I said, with the genre films, audiences can't get enough of this content. So it's 3 layers of content. You have content from the film. You have the making of, because people love that. You know what I mean? And then you got this character-based content that's outside of the story. I was approached by a genre film, and their big thing was all about the wigs. They had like real wig people making the monster costumes. It was all, they got some of the best craftsmen. So the film is done. I said, did you capture any of the making of content? They said no. And I said, well, you've lost a huge opportunity to get people to see your film and to get your potential distributors excited about the film, because that content would have gone so far. because people can't get enough of it. Game of Thrones. I mean, you look at Hulu's done a really good job with Handmaid's Tale. That's a great case study to look at. If you follow their Instagram, if you look at the ancillary content Hulu puts out, fan content, they have actor takeovers, they do all this different stuff. Great content. They do a very good job at.
Nice.
Jimmy Kimmel not Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon won the Emmy Award for digital content. And what happened was he would do a bit or create a character in his show. Mm-hmm. And that character would never be seen on the show again. But what Jimmy did was with NBC is that when it's showing off the air, they had this huge online piece. And they had one producer that would take the bits and they would live and have multiple episodes in this digital piece. And the audience loved it. It was great content because it was born in broadcast, lived in digital. When I worked at Fox in 1999, Carsey Werner wanted to put that 70s show at the end of the episode, and Fox wouldn't let him do it. Do you know why?
Why?
Because Fox thought that people would turn off the TV and go to the computer, and they didn't want to turn off the TV. We had another show. It was called Grounded for Life, another Carsey Werner show. Mm-hmm. Donald Lowe, great show. And at that time, they had Yahoo groups. Mm-hmm. So now I'm tracking the show everywhere, whatever, you know. And what I'm seeing is there are Yahoo groups talking about the show. And they're talking about the show while it's on the air. They're like, "Oh, my dad would never said that," or you know, like they're riffing on the show, right?
And it's timestamped, so you know it's live.
Yeah. So I had to like show that to writers of the show to say, "Oh my God, look what's happening!" You know, it's simultaneous. This is kind of what took me into the second screen experience. Another great experience for content creators is this. I was at a birthday party for a friend who had a lot of writer friends. Mm-hmm. And I had taken my wife to the party. This is 20 years ago.
Right.
Taking my wife to the party, and, you know, she's not in the business, or she's a school teacher. So she's like talking to this, but whatever. So some guy who's just kind of there says to her, "Hey, whatever, are you in the business?" She goes, "No." Oh, no. She says, "What do you do?" And he goes, "I'm a writer." And she goes, "What show?" And he goes, "Friends." And she goes, "Ugh, I used to love that show, and now I hate it." And he was shocked. And he goes, "What do you do?" She goes, "I'm a school teacher." And he grabbed her hand and he said, "Come with me." And he took her to a corner of the restaurant, and they sat for a half hour, and he filled up 10 cocktail napkins full of shit. So the writer was Adam Chase, the executive producer, a friend. He never talked to a regular person that watched the show. He knew the show was sliding. He just wanted to talk to somebody that was invested and was really seeing that the show was hurting, and he wanted to hear from her why. And he wasn't getting that. And that's what digital gives you, because you can engage your audience now. But he was like, "Oh my God, thank you." Because he wasn't getting it. He was too deep inside it.
That's astonishing to me, especially with Hollywood's reputation of like everything is too focus grouped, and he wasn't hearing from real people.
Well, listen, the Aquence, the company does focus groups, they're all paid. They're all paid to be there. You know, it's not about just talking to regular people, you know, and so he was thrilled to talk to her because she had very specific, articulate things to say. So, you know, that is something that they did not historically have. So, you know, now, you know, and you know, the other thing where there's always a disconnect is between programming and marketing. Those departments, those don't really, they're all very siloed. Studios are very siloed. And so a transmedia producer like myself is a silo buster. That's what we do. So that's literally why they needed to bring me in to run the Oscars, because I was the project lead. And so I had to keep the wheels on the bus for 6 different divisions of the company that would bottleneck to me. I was the point for the Academy. And then really it was my senior VP. And then, you know, 2 steps up to Iger, because it was the highest rated night of the network.
Right. And ABC. Yeah.
And when I first got in the job, the biggest part of the job was I would meet with everybody. And then I'd meet this person in tech and this person in marketing. And I realized they had no idea what the other person was doing. So I'd schedule a meeting with the 2 and I'd say, tell each other what you're doing, and I'd go to lunch and I'd come back in an hour. Because they didn't know. They didn't talk.
Of course. Yeah.
It was crazy. It was crazy. They didn't talk. And so it drove me nuts. And so I basically was in there then. And, once I had earned the trust of people, I was able to go to meetings outside my normal realm, and I could then report on digital and all this kind of stuff. And, this is at a time where Kimmel wasn't really supporting the show. And then later we were getting a lot of inroads because we were promoting on the website all of his archive stuff from post-Oscar shows, so we were really helping him a lot, and he loved it. And so it worked out good, and that helped build a lot of those bridges. So
reminds me of something Randy Pausch said, like always bring something to the table.
The digital space is a convergence of three worlds: traditional media, branded advertising, and technology. And the technology is the last mile. And the reason why this world has not grown quicker is because traditional media and advertising are worlds based in fear. All the decisions at the top are based in fear. Whereas technology is based in science. And if your science is good, Steve Jobs can get up there and say, this is what's going to happen. And so now, because the world is slow to change, this is good advice. If you're a storyteller, that storytelling is the last piece. If you want to have cutting edge content, you have to be married to cutting edge technology, but the technology is not standardized yet. So if I'm pitching a TV show with digital ancillary content, my pitch could be different to ABC than Fox because they have different digital footprints.
Right.
So if Fox isn't doing mobile apps, I can't go in there and pitch that because they're not going to get it. Mm-hmm. You've got to know your buyer, and you've got to know your audience, and you want to be on the cutting edge. And you want to know where the brands live, because most people in broadcasting don't. And anytime you see something great from a brand, odds are it was born within the brand itself and not from an ad agency. The ad agencies are actually at the greatest risk in this brave new world we're all going to live in, the ad agencies. And that's been the case for 20 years.
So my last question to you is, if you could go back to Tucson, visit your past self, and give yourself any advice, what would it be and why?
Marcy Carsey from Carsey Werner gave this advice. It's great advice. And she said, always bet on yourself and never be afraid to lose the job going in.
That's good. That's a good one.
So she's the best. Yep, she's the best. Her and Norman Lear. I got to work with Marcy, and I've gotten to meet Norman several times. They were my real idols. And look, they're still immensely respected today because they had that integrity. It was about the quality of the stories they told and the characters they created at the times they lived in. And I talked to Norman at one of those reboots of All in the Family. And I said, this is so great they're honoring you, but I can't believe they're not making these kind of shows now. And he said, because the networks are so lame, in terms of being afraid. Everything's risk adverse. So I really have tried to pride myself in helping others with their career. I mentor a lot of people. I mentor a lot of students. I mentor a lot of friends that are at crossroads, because I got into digital early. A lot of people are getting into digital now late. I help a lot of people in that realm. And something I learned from a friend at AFI was, he said, there's plenty of room at the table. Everybody should lift everybody up. So, 20, 30 years later, I've got a lot of footprints on my back, but it's not, I don't have that regret, but I guess maybe I should have been tougher. When I was at Fox, I was the coordinator of programming, a very important job. I managed a lot of the resources of the network. And when I went on my honeymoon, a assistant who was below me found out there was going to be a job, an executive job, and he positioned himself to steal it while I was on my honeymoon. And I had people calling me at the hotel on my honeymoon. If you hear something, don't worry about it. Don't this, don't that, and don't quit, the whole thing. And I didn't quit. And I got a lot of respect from senior executives who are still very close friends today because I really stood by the company. There's a lot of people in this business who have told me they've been late to their going away parties from jobs because they're still working. And, I don't know, maybe I should have played more of the game. Maybe not. I don't know. I have 3 great kids. I took a lot of time off in my career to help raise my kids. Those are my greatest legacy. They're my 3 Oscars, to be honest. So that's what I would tell people. There's a lot of people having babies at 45, and I had my last kid at 38. I don't know, my oldest in college now. I'm very proud of him. He's an Eagle Scout, you know, so I love my kids. They're great. So that's the end of the day, what you take with you. Not the $1 million you make in between. Always bet on yourself and don't be afraid to go lose the job going in.
And that is Season 2, Episode 12 of the Producers Lounge podcast. Thank you to my guest, John Heinsen, for joining us. You can find out more about him by checking out the show notes and visiting our website at greaterandgrander.com. Our intro and outro music today was Snowbound by Dennis Mitchelltree. Our episode still image is from monabu.eu. Go to monabu.eu to find out more. If you have any questions or suggestions, we'd love to hear from you. Let us know in the episode comments. You can stay up to date by following us on social media at the handle Greater Grander, all one word. Make sure to subscribe wherever the fine podcasts are found, and also, if you like what we do, share this podcast with a friend who you think will enjoy it. Join us next week for more cocktails and questions, and until then, keep producing dreams.